You would think that the issues of love, health, and wealth would come from different reasons. But actually, I have found in my own experience of over 20 years of coaching, of being a PhD psychosocial analyst, that at the core, at the base, are the same kind of patterns that just simply evolve and develop in different ways in your life. So I'm going to share with you three kinds of women who have problems either in health, wealth, or love. But we're going to focus first on love, and then I'm going to talk about how they manifest in those other two areas. I learned about this firsthand because I was having trouble for a very long time with bringing love into my life, with bringing success into my life. And the reason was that at a very, very young age of 2, my father, who was the sun and moon to me, he was the person I bonded with because my mother was overwhelmed with 2 children and she had been brought up as an only child, so she was totally swamped. Anyway, my father, he was transferred to Japan. He was in the army. At 2 years old, I did not understand this. I thought it was because there was something wrong with me. And I developed a pattern which I would call people pleasing, which was trying to get what I needed by being the good little girl, by doing what other people wanted of me. The problem with that is that I never developed that internal compass. At that time, I never developed that inner compass that told me what was right for me, because I was looking out there in the universe for affirmation, for confirmation. Now, some of that is natural because we are a communal species and we do depend upon other people's responses to us. But at some point, you want to develop that inner confidence about your self-importance. Anyway, I'm married, and the marriage actually lasted we were together for 15 years, and then he left me for another woman. There was that abandonment. There was that betrayal. It was like, how could that happen? The people pleasing was not really pleasing, because people pleasing is a way of protecting oneself. It didn't allow me to be really intimate. What did I do afterwards? I joined a spiritual community where relationships don't matter. And I could have gone on like that, but then I met eventually my future husband and quickly realized that if I did not get this abandonment, people-pleasing problem handled, I was going to lose this relationship. And he's a pretty amazing guy. So I went ahead and I hired a coach and I worked on my emotional wounds. And I'm happy to say that I am still together with my husband after 22 years. So let's talk about the 3 women, the 3 kinds of women. Well, there's the controller, and that is somebody who has grown up in a chaotic family circumstance. There may even have been sexual abuse or physical abuse, and the young daughter has tried to take control. I had a client who became a controller because her father left and her mother was a party girl and was not to be responsible. So another pattern is the one that I already described for myself, which is the people pleaser. This is a person who loses track of their own needs and their own value. They don't believe in their value, and so they go ahead and go out and try and extract it through approval from the world. And this actually comes in various forms. I'm going to talk about that one tomorrow. And then last is the person who is depressed, shut down, totally squashed, has shut off completely. And this also could come from an abusive situation, or it could be mental abuse or emotional abuse in an overly critical parent, a mother or a father, that leaves the child never feeling good enough. And so they are in some ways people pleasers, but they have totally tamped down their emotions. And there are a lot of them out there in the world. An American medical expenditure panel that studied the use of drugs in the United States found that 1 out of 6 Americans is on some sort of psychiatric drug, primarily tranquilizers and antidepressants. This is a go-to pattern so that they don't feel. We're going to focus, however, on the controller, because the controller comes, well, because that's number one. And the controller comes in 3 flavors. There's the manager supermom. There is the martyr damsel in distress. And then there is the high maintenance femme fatale. And each one of them controls the world in a different way. Let's talk about the manager supermom. So how does that operate in love life? Well, often this kind of woman will attract a man who is looking for a mom, who is looking to be taken care of. And the supermom, she's looking for a project. She's looking for somebody she can change and create into what she desires. Only it's a forever project, because he will never become what she wants. First of all, she'll never be pleased enough. And second of all, if he does, she will lose her project. And so the dynamic won't work. She needs to always be needed as the one who solves the issue, that takes care of him. But then she's never satisfied. He never shows up in bed the way she wants. He is never can be intimate with her on a mental or emotional level, because she always treats him as a little boy. I actually did that for a little while with my first husband. I had gotten a job, and actually I'd been supporting him for a number of years, and I got my first teaching job, and he started showing signs of emotional distress. And since his brother had problems with that, I thought, oh no. And I was trying to protect him and do everything so that everything would be okay, because I was a people pleaser. And one day I went to a support group of women, a women's group, and this one woman said, if you do that, you infantilize him. You make him into an infant, and he will never grow up. It knocked me out of the water. I woke up and I stopped doing that. I stopped taking care of him. I started making demands, which was rather harsh and difficult, because I went from this super mom, take care of, to this very, very demanding woman. And I don't know that it ever worked in that marriage. I don't think it ever worked until I started doing the coaching. So that's supermom. Then there's the next one, which is the martyr damsel in distress. Now, I did play damsel in distress for a while with my dad, because he liked to play hero. I didn't do damsel in distress because I was really felt that I was inadequate, but because I wanted his attention. Well, in fact, that's what a lot of women do, is they play damsel in distress or victim, because it's a way of getting attention. Some people even, some women even use sickness as a way to get attention, so that they get the love that they need. Sometimes that's the result of the way in which their parents or their mom took care of them, was that sickness was the only way in which the child could get attention. Oh my gosh, fortunately, that never happened to me. I never got any attention when I was sick, so I have rarely gotten sick because, nor do I expect anybody to give me attention when I'm sick. But it's a really vicious pattern and not something that you would like. And then the third one, as I said, was the femme fatale, the high maintenance woman. And she's in control in a very different way. She may attract men, but they never satisfy her. And so eventually they leave because she's too high maintenance, because they can never please her. And men do not want to hang around with somebody they can't please. So all those three patterns do not work well. The controller supermom, the supermom manager, because then the man never becomes the full-fledged partner. And then there's the martyr victim. Well, he gets to be hero, but it gets boring after a while because there's not an equal relationship. And then finally, there's the femme fatale, and she's never satisfied either. And she can never be satisfied because then she loses her control. If any of these sound familiar, then you might want to ask yourself, well, how does that show up in other relationships? Not just male-female relationships, but how does that show up in like work relationships? If you were a manager, a supermom manager where you take over everything, the manager of the universe, then you're not very good at delegating. And you end up feeling a little bit like a victim because you end up doing all the work and you get exhausted. And that, of course, affects your health. So you don't take advantage of the intelligence of the communal group, of the community. And you wear yourself out and you get sick. And maybe the work or business will fail because you don't utilize the talent in business. The martyr damsel in distress, she doesn't do very well in the business world. She may manipulate a lot of people into helping her and taking care of her, and that works for a while. But she gets passed over when it comes to what's the word? She gets passed over when it comes to promotions because she's not seen as capable. Even though she might be capable, her habit of being distressed or needing help all the time and not being able to stand up for herself, she gets passed over. She has to always manipulate for somebody else to take care of her. So she doesn't do as well in business. And if she has manipulated that martyrdom into ill health, you can imagine how that affects her health. She doesn't do very well that way. And she might be successful in terms of wealth in catching herself a man who takes care of her, but she may actually drain him. I had a client who was a controller. Oh, well, let me go through the third one and then I'll tell you about her. So the last one is the depressive. The last one is the femme fatale. So the femme fatale pleaser, she is impossible to please. And how is she in the work world? Well, she actually might be effective in some ways in that she's very flashy and she gets a lot of attention, but she will also be really hated by her coworkers or her underlings because she's such a prima donna. She is never satisfied, she's never pleased. And so the people who work under her never feel like they can please her and they eventually go and get other jobs. And that will affect your business. And how does that affect her health? Well, it takes a lot of effort to be a femme fatale. And she may always feel like she's never satisfied. And she never gets the love she wants. So I was going to tell you about this client that I had. So she was a controller in that sense of being taking over her mom's role and taking care of the family. And she worked really hard. She got a good job because she knew how to manage. And then she met the love of her life, this wonderful man who took care of her. So she played damsel in distress. And he loved her and he cherished her and he nurtured her. And yet she still played controller with her family. And so she would channel his efforts and his money into taking care of her family members. He eventually died, quite young. Maybe she burnt him out. Sometimes people can do that. And then she went back into damsel in distress with her son, where she was the bereaved widow. And she carried on being the bereaved widow for 20 years. And finally decided that she wanted to go back to being super mom and taking care of her son. And that's when she came to me and she got the help that she needed. Now I have to say she did go and work with a psychoanalyst and a psychotherapist, and they didn't do her any good. But she came to me and we actually worked through her issues, her early childhood patterns, and got her back on into her life and into her joy in a very short time, less than 3 months. So what about you? How are you doing? Do any of these patterns resonate? And it's okay if they don't, because I have a few more patterns. But if they have been cropping up, and I have to say that sometimes we switch, like my client, from one pattern to another, like I did from the people pleaser to a controller, and then to a damsel in distress. So we switch depending on what feels right in the situation or what we need, because the ultimate and bottom line on this is, as little children, we were not safe. We did not get the love and attention we needed. Human beings are social animals. It's not enough to just give them food and clothing and shelter. They need love. Little children need love. They've done studies, like psychologists have done studies with children in orphanages, and they did the studies with the chimpanzees and found that when the babies did not get touched and nurtured and nourished and loved and cuddled, they actually did not thrive. So children that learned how to manipulate the attention they needed actually survived. But then they develop patterns that hold you back, from success, either in love or in wealth or in health, that they affect your ability to have success in any of those areas. Maybe you want to reassure your little girl that the world is actually safe. Maybe you want her to know that it's possible for there to be love and safety and wealth and health. If you would like to do that and you would like some help, you can have a conversation with me. I offer complimentary 15-minute to 20-minute conversations over the telephone, in which we can find out what pattern is holding you back and what you need to bring more love, more success, more satisfaction, and better health in your life. There's a link over in the comments box. Go ahead and schedule some time with me, and let's see how I can enable you, empower you to have the love that you, your child, inner child, richly deserve. That's all I have for today. Hope you enjoyed this. Come back tomorrow, because I'm going to talk about the next pattern, which is the people pleaser. That's the one I know really well, and you're going to understand how the people pleaser shows up, how that affects her health, her wealth, and the love in her life. Hope you enjoyed it. Be brilliant, and bye for now.